The Wolf of the Snowy Peaks. In a remote village nestled high in the snowy, impassable mountains, where people lived simple lives dependent on hunting and hardy livestock, there lived a brave and righteous hunter named Khalid. He was known throughout the valleys for his unmatched skill in tracking game and his wise, measured judgment. During one of the crisp, bright days of early spring, while Khalid was surveying the edges of the dense pine forest that bordered the glaciers, his eyes fell upon a wolf pup, no larger than his hand, abandoned among the roots of an ancient fir tree. It was alone, shivering from the cold and hunger, likely left behind after its pack had fled or its mother had been killed. Khalid looked at the small creature with compassionate eyes and a heart full of pity. He picked it up gently, wrapped it in the warmth of his woolen coat, and carried it back to his modest wooden lodge, which stood overlooking a frozen stream. He named him Bunayy, my little son, a name brimming with hope and affection. Bunayy grew up under Khalid's care and protection. He was not merely a wolf, he became a companion and a son. His fur was a thick, luxurious mix of light grey and tawny brown, perfect for the harsh climate, and his eyes were a clear, intelligent amber that sparkled with a rare understanding. Khalid taught him much, and a powerful, unbreakable bond formed between them. Several years later, on a cold morning in autumn, when the golden leaves of the alpine bushes were giving way to the first dusting of snow, Khalid joined a group of village hunters on a long expedition. Their goal was to hunt the mountain hares, which were plentiful in that season. Each hunter brought their pack of eager hunting dogs, barking and yelping with excitement. Khalid, however, brought only Bunayy, the wolf who had become more skilled than any dog. The dogs fanned out across the rocky slopes, but they failed to catch even a single hare, either out of clumsiness or because the hares were too swift and cunning. Bunayy, with his innate prowess and sharp intelligence, managed to deftly and swiftly snatch a large hare, astonishing everyone present. But Bunay's success ignited the jealousy of the hungry hunting dogs. They encircled him, growling, baring their teeth, trying to steal the prize from his mouth. Khalid saw the situation unfolding and tried to intervene, but it was too swift. Bunayy defended himself and his catch with a courage and ferocity he had never shown before. In a short time, he had killed most of the dogs and scattered the rest. The hunters erupted in fury. They saw Bunayy not as a companion, but as a dangerous, wild predator. They surrounded Khalid, shouting and threatening, demanding that the wolf who had ruined their hunt and killed their dogs be put down. Khalid stood heartbroken. He knew he could not reason with their rage, and that Bunay's life was in grave danger. After a brief internal struggle, he compensated the hunters for their lost dogs and promised to deal with the wolf. But instead of killing him, he took Bunayy to a large travelling circus that had come to the distant town and sold him to its owner, believing this fate was kinder for his friend than death. A few days passed. Then, one pitch-black night, a bear of monstrous size attacked Khalid's village. It was the most massive beast they had ever seen, a legendary monster known as Jabr al-Awar, Jabr the One-Eyed. A deep scar ran where its left eye should have been, and its body was a map of old wounds and battles. Jabr destroyed everything in his path, killing several villagers with terrifying brutality. Everyone was powerless to stop him. The villagers tried to organise hunting parties, but the bear was too strong and too clever to be caught in their traps. In their despair, some remembered the tale of the wolf Bunayy, but no one dared to suggest bringing him back after what had happened. It was then that Khalid remembered his elderly father, Faris, a legendary hunter of the old days who had long since retired. Faris saw in this bear a challenge that only the strongest could overcome. The next morning, Faris took his old rifle and his beloved, trusted hunting dog Salma and ventured deep into the forest, heading towards the bear's presumed lair near the high glaciers. Long hours passed, and the village waited anxiously. Finally, in the dead of night, a faint whining was heard. It was Salma. She had returned alone, her body covered in deep wounds, trembling from exhaustion and terror. Tied to her collar was a small piece of paper stained with blood. On it, Faris had written in a hurried script, "If I do not return, take my son Khalid and go retrieve the wolf Bunayy. He is the only one who can face this beast." Khalid read the message, his heart breaking. He did not hesitate for a moment. He mounted his sturdy mountain horse and began the long, arduous journey to the distant town. He reached the circus and after an emotional plea with the ringmaster, where he saw Bunayy, chained and despondent, he managed to convince him to return the wolf, bargaining and offering everything he had in compensation. As soon as they returned to the village outskirts, they began their preparations. Khalid let Bunayy smell the bear's scent from Salma's wounds, and they set off into the forest. Bunayy sniffed the air with primal intensity, his eyes alight with an ancient instinct. Deep within the forest, near a dark cave dripping with icy water, they found the colossal bear. Jabr al-Awar was even larger than they had imagined, a truly terrifying sight. Bunayy did not attack immediately. Instead, he stared intently at the bear's one good eye, as if remembering something long forgotten. Suddenly a blurred image flashed in his memory. A snowy night long ago, a brave she-wolf defending her pup against a monstrous bear. It was his mother. And this very same bear was the one who had attacked them. She had managed to claw out his eye, but he had killed her and left him alone, until Khalid found him. A deep, primal urge for revenge awoke within Bunayy. He raised his head and let out a long, piercing howl that tore through the silent, frozen forest. It was not just a call to battle, it was a call to his kin. From every direction, wolves began to emerge from between the trees and behind snowdrifts, gathering around him, answering the call of their brother and their ancient foe. The most fearsome battle those mountains had ever witnessed began. On one side, the pack of wolves, led by Bunayy, attacked with coordination and cunning. On the other, the huge one-eyed bear, fending them off with its deadly claws and terrifying raw strength. Jabr killed several wolves with crushing blows, but they advanced fearlessly. From a ridge above, Khalid watched the battle, his heart pounding. He saw Bunayy trying to leap onto the bear's back, to no avail. Khalid realized that tooth and claw alone would not be enough. He raised his old rifle, and the world around him fell silent. He pictured the tear of Bunay's mother, the courage of his father Faris, and the last hope of his village. He fired the single shot he had saved for this decisive moment. The bullet struck the bear perfectly in its heart. The great beast staggered for a moment, then fell to the ground with a thunderous crash, motionless. A heavy silence descended. All the wolves turned to Bunayy, who was staring at the bear's carcass. Then he turned and looked up at Khalid on the ridge. Theirs was not the look of a man and a beast, but of a father and his son, or two brothers on a battlefield. In Bunay's eyes, Khalid saw profound gratitude, an understanding of all that had transpired, and a final farewell. Then Bunayy turned to his pack, which had gathered around him, acknowledging him as their new leader and alpha. He let out a final triumphant howl and led his pack deep into the heart of the snowy wilderness, toward his true destiny. And Khalid stood alone, watching them disappear, knowing he had faced his past, protected his village's future, and given his most precious possession for the sake of justice and honour. He returned to his village a hero, carrying in his heart the memory of his father and his wolf, with the glint of a tear in his eye for a journey he would never forget.